classic. Oh man. Oh fuck. These things are gold, right? Hold on.
Welcome everybody on the internet. Oh God, who is echoing? Tommy.
Shut up.
Hi. Welcome to the second episode of TIGRadio, the independent gaming radio for independent game developers and independent game development.
Sweet.
I'm your host, Matthew Wegner. Your other hosts are Ben Ruiz and Tommy Reffinez.
Hey guys.
Hi guys.
It's us, Ben and Tommy.
So a couple of things to mention off the bat at the top of the hour. I can say top of the hour because it sounds more professional.
Yeah.
We do have a Facebook fan page and a Twitter account for the show. So if you want to know who's coming up on the next weekly show, Twitter is just twitter.com/TIGRadio. And we don't have enough fans yet to get a Facebook username URL. So you can go to tinyurl.com/TIGRadio to go there and become a fan.
Heyo.
So we can actually get a URL at Facebook. That'd be totally sweet. A couple other things. We are going to go ahead and move forward with the audio essay idea. So if you would like to air a 3 to 5 minute editorial piece that you record yourself about some topic related to independent game development, please do so. And then email us. You can email us at hello@tigradio.com, which goes to all three of us. Ben and Tommy don't know that yet, but they have accounts there too.
No, I knew it.
Oh, okay.
I unsubscribed immediately.
Sweet. So the show, IGF finalists will actually be announced later tonight, as far as I know. We should be on track for like a 9 o'clock PST announcement.
Fucking
So
awesome.
next week's show, we're going to have an IGF themed show with Simon Carlos, IGF director, and Think Services game brand manager. He had a recent title upgrade, and some IGF finalists and things on the show next week. But this week, we are going to have a show about Gamma, I guess showcase is the word. And let me quick bring Heather back on the line. So our guests for today's show, or today's segment on Gamma, is Phil Fish, game developer extraordinaire and a member of the Kokoromi Collective, and then Heather Kelley, also a member of the collective. And why is it not calling? There we go.
Hey Phil.
Hello.
Hey Phil.
Phil's here, you guys. Phil Fish.
Phil Fish, hey.
Hi.
And Heather is on the line.
Hey Heather.
Yep.
So we are going to
Howdy.
talk about Gamma. I guess I'll just kick it over to you guys. What is Gamma? Hard
What is
question.
Gamma?
Yes, for people who might not have heard of it, who are listening,
Yeah.
what is Gamma?
Yeah. So now me and Phil have to figure out how we're going to negotiate both or neither or one of us answering every question that you ask.
Okay, Heather,
Just
you're
fight for it.
already talking. What is Gamma?
Okay. Gamma, well, it originally stood for Game Art Montreal because
Not
that's where
anymore.
we started. That's where we all were when we started doing this crazy thing. And if you go all the way back to when we started Kokoromi, it was because we wanted to bring more experimental and indie games sort of to the masses, you might say. And Gamma was our first major volley in that once we formed Kokoromi to try to get people making experimental games and then taking that to the mass of humanity out there who may never have played an experimental game and sort of show how awesome they are and also have music.
Cool. So Phil, how awesome are experimental games?
They're so awesome.
Very good. Next question.
Well, I think they're important because it started a whole argument that the big guys aren't going to do it because it's risky and they have to make money. But the moment you decide that you're not doing it for money and you're just doing it to try new stuff, that's where evolution happens. I think that's where the new genres are created, and that's how they become the big blockbusters of tomorrow. That's important or else you stagnate. You just keep doing the same stuff over and over again.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we wanted to push people technically a little bit, but more creatively. Like we were making a big point at the beginning to do stuff that was innovative, that you have to work with this technology, but you have to make good, interesting gameplay out of it. So it's never, things look really awesome, but it's not a visually focused challenge. It's a very design-focused challenge, which I think was kind of new at the time.
One thing that's really neat about experimentation in general is that it heavily implies the possibility of failure. You have to allow yourself to fail. You know, it's part of it. If you experiment and you just keep succeeding, you know, you're doing something wrong. But if you're working on a big, giant, you know, multi-million-dollar game, failure really isn't as much as of an option.
Yeah.
Yeah. So where did the idea of themes come from? I know when like the very first Gamma was the live audio, but you guys had gotten together when you were making games themed around winter. Is that correct?
Yeah.
I think Phil should tell that story.
Yeah, kind of. It was this cultural event in Montreal that has an all-nighter event every year where there's all these museum and galleries and bars that are open all night, and there's all sorts of different shows or, you know, art shows or whatever. And we were invited to make a game made for public play, designed around the theme of winter for some reason, because it takes place in the dead of winter, and they want more of it. And we made this little game that was for a thing called a panoscope, which is like a giant dish screen that you walk inside of, and there's screen around you 360 degrees.
Did you guys have one of these like lying around?
That's the venue where the event was held actually develops that type of technology. So they had a whole bunch there, and it was really awesome to have access to that, especially for our first. It was our first collaboration, and it happened in like a week. And we really liked the idea of having these games designed for public events like that, where you know, it's part of everything. It's part of the design. It's part of the, you know, we didn't have sound in our games because we knew that there was going to be really loud music there, and that's been a Gamma rule ever since. Kind of losing my voice here. I'm sorry.
You should be.
Is everybody? Yeah. I have to interrupt here to say, is like everybody in the whole indie games community sick right now?
Yeah, pretty much.
I think all 10 of them are sick. It's pretty bad news. Actually,
it was something a blip.
Oh yeah, blip got everybody sick. I actually wanted to ask you, Phil,
That
about
must be why I'm sick.
noise.
Some people were at blip.
Yeah.
What?
It got gross.
I wanted to ask you, well, either Phil or Heather, about the loud music and the party thing. Like, what made you guys want to present the games in party format versus some sort of stuffier, quieter daytime format?
Well, it was pretty obvious that, you know, if you presented it like an art show, it was really just games and free wine or something. That might be a little bit boring.
You're gonna get a different audience. That's it. Like you're gonna get a lot more people if it's seen as more of a social event. You know, something where they can come and. You know.
Yeah, it was more of a dance party with games than an art show with games. You know, we didn't want to have that kind of. I don't want to say. Well, I'll say a level of pretension. If it was like, you know, wine and cheese and everybody like contemplating the games very seriously, like, that's very interesting. No, we wanted to have a dance party with people drunk, dancing, having fun.
In retrospect, was that the right call with the way they've turned out?
Yeah.
Well, only so many people actually start dancing.
I was going to say yes, with the reservation that the hardest part has been getting people to actually dance. But the part with the games has been really awesome.
Yeah, the rest of the event has been pretty successful, I think.
Why not have a dance game theme?
Yeah, why not?
Oh shit!
So on the themes, where do you guys get your ideas for themes? Do you what were the other themes that were in the running for this year? I know that Gamma 3 was basically, hey, 3 is in the name, let's do 3D. But what about this year?
Well, that's not the only reason why. I mean, the timing was really great for that. But you know, since then, 3D has like totally exploded in the theaters and everything. You know, it was already sort of bubbling below the surface then, but now it's like really clear that the theaters are, you know, the linear media people are back on the 3D wagon. So we were sort of responding to seeing that coming on the horizon. So it's not just because there was number 3.
But it helped. We tried to come up with a punt for Gamma 4 also. It was harder.
Oh God, can we run through some of those?
Yes,
yeah,
please.
my favorite was Gamma 4
Forceps.
Oh.
Gamma 4 play, Gamma Forceps.
Gamma 4 skin.
Yeah.
Gross.
Those were all rejected, and we gave up on the idea of the pun theme. So that kind of liberated us to go crazy. But you know, last year was a fairly technical theme. It's not an easy thing to do a stereoscopic game as opposed to the year before where it was a super low-res games. So we wanted to have a theme that would be more approachable this year, since I think it's going to be the biggest year yet. You know, being at GDC,
Yeah.
it's higher profile and all that. We want it to be much more accessible. The original idea that we were running with for a while was much more technical and complicated, and we were afraid that we just couldn't pull it off. Given,
What was it? Can you say it?
should we say it?
Should we tell them? I don't know. There's a possibility it might be rolled out in a in a later format, like a workshop or something like that. So
Got it.
maybe
But-
I don't know.
For our first big GDC Gamma, it was a little bit scary, so we scaled back to something a lot simpler.
Who are the primary organizers? Is it just you guys, or do you have help from other friends?
Well, it's just
and-
Kokoromi, basically,
Okay.
Yeah.
and some of our contributors for the different themes. We approach experts, if you will, to guide us.
Mhm. Yeah.
Awesome.
So this year, Peter Kern of Create Digital Music and Create Digital Media has been giving us some backup support and advice and all kinds of crazy info. And last year we had the guys from Space and Dream who had done some 3D stuff in Montreal give us.
But yeah, last year we had Ralph
our-
Baer call us at one point.
That's
Wow.
true.
Yeah, Ralph Baer called us
Yeah.
like, I used to play with 3D games back in the 70s. Maybe I can give you a couple of tips.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was really funny.
Because
That
he
guy was
did,
way ahead of the curve.
he did Cave Story, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that's what I thought from rereading.
from the internet. So on the Gamma front, the limitations you guys have picked, except I guess this year, have actually been quite strict. But I mean, I think most people generally agree that provokes creativity. Do you guys
Oh,
actually
definitely.
impose that in your own processes for your own projects, or is it just something that you like to impose on other people? I didn't mean that to sound quite so aggressive, but no, it's just like why go with a really really strict theme versus or thematic, love or
it's not really a thematic exactly. You know, you see a lot of competition on websites where they just tell you like a word and they're like, go
Cheese.
nuts. It can be whatever. Yeah, cheese. Make a game with cheese. We don't think that doesn't limit your creativity in the right way. You know, what's the expression about limitations making for better creativity? Yeah, like I don't remember it.
Like within
I know it, yeah.
within limitation lies genius or something like that.
Like
but,
that. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Instead of kind of a abstract, highly interpretable thematic, it's much more. I don't know. How would you say it's more of a technical?
it's kind of like a
challenge.
process structural limitation as opposed to any kind of like
Right.
thematic limitation. I'm actually quite
It's-
surprised
yeah.
that you guys didn't do like a snarky or 2-button theme, because it seems like 1-button has been done a bunch of times in other competitions. I mean, Cannibal came from the 1-button month of experimental gameplay workshop. Wait,
It wasn't one
Projects.
button. It was
I was gonna
bare
say-
minimum. I think the theme was.
yeah.
But-
Yeah, it
It
was
wasn't one.
There's
Yeah,
still a lot
it's
more to
nothing-
do
it's
with
nothing-
one button.
Groundbreaking or super weird or anything, but given what's happening with game controls in general these days, with motion controls, Natal, the whatever it's called, the PS3, the magic dildo thing.
Yeah.
Uh,
Equivalent.
I do think that
The
is. the
Natal.
name.
yeah,
The
I
magic
don't know how
dildo.
else to. Yeah, you know, all that stuff is super interesting. At the same time, we're wondering, you know, there's probably still a lot that can be done with just
And
one
it's
button.
so iconic. I think that's the other thing that we always have a feeling of sort of like the aesthetic of the event overall, and that the one button really just has this essence that can't be denied.
Do you guys have planned to have custom-made gigantic 1-button hardware inputs?
No
Because
comment.
if you don't,
Yeah.
you guys need to
No
make that
comment.
happen. Okay, I'll take that as
Nice.
a no.
You make it happen.
So you're both pretty busy with your own projects, but I'm actually curious if you had thought about 1-button games yourselves. Like what what game design ideas would you have for like a one-button competition?
I had a lot of ideas for the theme we abandoned, and when we switched to one button, by then I'd pretty much given up on making a game at all this year. We seem to skip every other year to make games. We didn't make one for 256. We're not making one for 4. Yeah, I don't think I would have time to make something decent with between making Fez and actually running the show, which is so much more complicated this year, being far away from where we live.
Right.
Yeah.
So I haven't really thought about any one-button game ideas that I think would be awesome and not about a dude running. Because that was my original idea, and then Adam made Cannibal.
And then now is
Adam
now is a millionaire.
Ever.
How about Ben?
And I honestly think there's going to be like the limitation, as we've talked about, is kind of like one that's very approachable for people, and we are expecting, especially because we're going to be at GDC, that we're going to have so many entries that like we are extremely fair. Like if we worked on a game, we being Kokoromi, and it was not one of the most interesting and diverse and experimental of the total number of games we could show, we would not include it. And I think there's going to be so many games, like really good games this year, that I want to make sure that we are able to show them like as many other people's games as we possibly can. And we're not really, with the 3D stuff, you're always like, well, are people going to be able to figure this out? We've figured it out, but so we know we can make something that's really awesome with this, and I think we did. But with the one button thing, I'm not so concerned that there's going to be a shortage of good stuff that we can show. So that's my feeling about it. And yeah, we're both, not just Phil and I, but also Cindy and Damien are really busy this year with other things. I'm actually going to San Francisco in February with the sole purpose of working on making sure that Gamma goes right. I'm going to be there for 6 weeks, just like,
wow.
I don't know,
Yeah, I don't
not
think
paid
people
or anything.
realize how much work goes into organizing something like that. Like it seems pretty simple. It's just one evening, just putting together like a bunch of projectors in a room, and then you're done. But
it's not.
Yeah.
It's a crazy
Cindy's been
amount of
working
work.
her ass off. Like Cindy's been sort of our budget manager, and yeah, so it's been already a lot of work, and it's only going to sort of ramp up in the weeks prior to the event.
How many entries are you guys expecting, or have already gotten?
It's really hard
we should
to.
start doing like a Price is Right like bet or something like that. I think, maybe I'm super optimistic, but I'm thinking it could be over like in the hundreds.
Wow.
And that's really extreme.
I think in the
That's sort of
hundreds of
big-
thousands.
Sweet. Yeah, I know with the IGF, there's almost fully, maybe a quarter of the entries are entered on the last day. And the deadline for Gamma, by the way, is January 31st, right? For the benefit of the listeners.
Yeah.
Let me check the website.
It's the end of January 31st, so yeah.
Yeah.
It's actually like right before midnight on February 1st. Yeah.
Still time.
Or is it February 1st? It's one of those.
I think.
Yeah, well, pretty much every year we get most of the games like on the deadline. People don't talk about them. There's a couple of games that have threads on TIGRadio right now, but I think most people are being pretty secretive about it, which is cool because then it's a surprise.
Yeah, especially
And
if you have
people
a
should
game.
know.
Oh, go ahead.
What? I was going to say people should be aware we are probably going to be pretty hardcore about that because with as many entries as we're going to have coming in, we have to have the time to be able to curate them. It's not easy to do that. We have to play them all and, argue endlessly. You wouldn't believe. So if people have an awesome game, but they submit it after the deadline, it's really not not kosher. So get your games in before the dedeadline. Don't
Yeah,
like
because
count
Adam
on
just
the
released this
opposite of
game
it.
doesn't mean everybody should do that too.
What?
I said just because Cactus released this game and everything doesn't mean you should do this game.
He'll just make another one tomorrow or the next day or the day after that.
It's on the spot.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. I made this new game. It's cool.
Cactus.
Think about this
How's it
game.
going?
I made it by pressing one button.
Yeah, you do drugs and then you press this button and it's fun. Okay.
But the first version, it was a game about pressing the 500 buttons, but it was too hard. So I made it about just one button.
Oh, we got to get him in here and totally all talk in that voice.
Just grape juice.
It'll be the weirdest trip for him.
Yeah.
So yeah, before we end up the segment, let's talk briefly about the party itself. What can GDC goers expect on whatever night this ends up on? Probably
You can expect
Wednesday?
the single awesomest, indiest party of all at GDC. Guaranteed. Yes.
It's the indiest and the gamerest.
Whoa.
The partiest.
Wow.
And then the partiest.
That's- Wow.
And
I'm
the
in.
dancingest.
I'm gonna dance.
Yeah.
I intend
Yeah.
to dance.
Good. Good.
Will there be Katamari balls?
Yes. Yes, there will.
To the people who do not know what that is, someone decided to start a Katamari ball at a party at this year's GDC, and it was pretty fantastic, and you should have been there.
Who would do that?
Not a party. It was the fantastic 11-bit party with
It was
all 11 bits
the
of
party.
awesomeness.
Really? I don't remember that.
Well,
I remember
that's,
a lot of
that's why it's
making
a
out.
good party.
Yeah, you can expect making out.
God damn it, Phil.
Great.
Is it like a human Katamari ball?
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
made entirely of human bodies.
Oh yeah,
Nice.
it was amazing.
Consensual human bodies.
All right.
which was
Well,
the best part.
expect that.
No, Katamari balls are never consensual.
Yeah,
that's
this
true.
one was.
This is a very good point.
There's a ruling in Georgia that went that way.
classic Georgia.
There's a
Fucking
precedent.
things up.
Or Katamari ball.
So yeah, awesome dance party with cool games and cool people.
Sweet.
Awesome.
Sweet.
Yep.
Yeah, and for anybody who's looking forward to the flashbang
And thanks
slash
to Flashbang for helping that too.
yeah, we're rolling the, I guess we just call it the N-bit party because we tried incrementing the years. We had a 9-bit, a 10-bit, and an 11-bit party, so that's being rolled into Gamma for organizational purposes.
Nice.
Yep.
Like I said, it's
And
the
we're also
indies
working on
party.
the musical entertainment right now too. So
Any ideas?
word out there.
Yeah, I
for-
might DJ.
well,
Yeah, I'm a DJ now. So
Right on.
yeah,
That's cool.
I'm gonna make you shake your booty like you wouldn't believe.
I'm in.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, Tommy doesn't dance.
I'm
Yeah,
gonna make you
I,
like,
I can
you know,
I can believe a lot of things. I
pump your
just don't
fist in the
believe it.
air and then like tap the ground. You know, as the beat builds up, you tap the ground. It's like you're beating the beat.
I love prom.
so it's like getting Tommy to dance. Like, is that the gauntlet thrown down? Like
Yep.
you have to get Tommy to dance.
That's
Yeah,
my
I'll
one
tell you
button.
right now, it is going to take a lot of alcohol and a lot of persuasion.
That's my one
that
button
was
design.
about what
I
was
mean, a
about to
lot
ask you.
of alcohol.
Yeah,
I've
We're gonna
how
danced
much?
one
people,
time.
right?
I've danced one
We can
time in
probably
my
do
life.
it.
Well, I bought an off-the-shelf wireless butterfly vibrator and then I modified it to fit Tommy's physique. That's my one button design. Actually, the one button game I wanted to do was a button, then you press it, and in big flashing text it says drink, and then if you press it 10 times, you win. That's really all I have. All right, well, thank you guys for coming on the show to discuss
Thanks so
Gamma.
much.
Thank you for having us.
I think it's kokoromi.org/Gamma4, but if just Google Gamma 4 and you'll find it.
You
The
don't
Googles-
Google Gamma because there's like all this math stuff and
No, I-
just Google Kokoromi.
I'm
or
pretty sure.
Gamma 4.
Well, yeah,
Really? We
Googling
come up by?
Gamma 4 is there's a TIG source article lower down on the page.
Okay.
But if
all right.
if
Yeah,
people are
just don't Google Gamma by itself. That's all. Gamma
Yeah.
4.
yeah, that's a confusing word.
Yeah, next year we're changing the name to Gamma Bolt.
Cool. Well, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we will have Ron Carmel through a time machine.
Actually, we're
With-
changing it to Gamedge.
Now you're just confusing me. All right, we will be right back. As soon as I click on the right thing here. All right, we are back. Our next segment is actually pre-recorded. So after this segment is done, we will have Phil still on the air for discussion with you, the chat room. And if you guys have any questions for Phil or for us, but not necessarily for Ron due to the complications of linear time, feel free to put them in the chat, and I'll keep an eye on the chat during this next segment. But without further ado, here is Ron Carmel. So we are here with Ron Carmel of 2D Boy.
Hello.
Hey, Ron.
Hey, Ron.
So
Ben.
for the benefit of the audience, can you give the briefest of introductions?
I am Ron Carmel. I'm one half of 2D Boy. Kyle and I made World of Goo, and we have done nothing worth talking about ever since.
Cool. Well, glad to have you here in the show.
Thanks.
So you listened to last week's show, right?
Yeah, I did. Awesome.
Okay.
Good job, guys.
Sweet, thanks. So we were talking a lot about games of 2009, but I wanted to pick your brain on more of a business approach, or not even business, just the state of indie. Like, what is easier for indies today than the indies of 2008 going into 2009? What is harder today? How have things changed? That kind of stuff. So, what's your take?
I don't know. It's a good question. I feel like 2008 was kind of a good year for indie games, and I'd like to think that it encouraged a lot of people to kind of try their luck at it and kind of do what they want to do. And since it takes a year or two to kind of complete a game, I'm really hoping that 2010 is going to see a lot more games, because I think there were a lot of games in 2008, fewer that came out in 2009, and then I'm hoping that 2010 will be kind of like another resurgence.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely feels that way with a lot of games that were winning the IGF last time around, like Fez, are now building up a ton of steam for a release in 2010.
Yeah, yeah.
And there were a ton of entries, like usual, climbing as always for the IGF this year.
Yeah.
What was the climb from 2009 from 2000 basically from last year to this year in the number of entries?
I think last year we had, off the top of my head, 230, and this year we had a little bit over 300.
That's a huge climb.
Yeah. There's also like 200 in the student, and then 100 and something in mobile. So all told, it's probably 650, 700 games.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah. And
It just kind of seems like things are really picking up steam on multiple fronts. No pun intended. Like, both number of entrants into the IGF. There's a lot more organization in the indie scene, a lot more conversations happening, and I feel like things are starting to kind of come out of the woodworks. And I just honestly, like, I'm kind of I don't know what's going to happen next year. I don't know, but I feel like there's a lot of things that could happen. And I'm really curious to kind of follow all those like little threads and see what happens with them.
Yeah. I mean, do you see indie getting bigger in terms of team size, in terms of resources required to complete a quote indie game, or do you see it leaning more towards the individual author, like the Cactus and the Messhoff and the Derek Yu?
I don't know. That's one that could kind of go either way. Like on one hand, I see, big studios are starting to pour more money into downloadable games, like Battlefield 1943. I think had a budget of $2 million or something like that. And we're, I talked to a couple of people who definitely know of games that are being developed for downloadable channels in the $1 to $2 million price range. And I don't know what that means for indies. Does that mean that we need to start cranking up our game in terms of numbers and just pump more money in order to be able to compete and stay kind of, to represent on those channels? Or does it actually mean quite the opposite, that the AAA industry is kind of moving into the downloadable channels, and what we must do is what we're already doing, which is not compete and be different and do things and keep doing things low budget and survive by not competing, basically.
Yeah. I mean, there were a lot of people that were pissed off about Battlefield 1943 even like taking up an XBLA slot, but I actually think it'll be more positive than negative, because a lot of those people that were playing Battlefield 43 probably didn't even realize there was an XBLA or had never actually downloaded a game, or like there's a technical thing of like they know where it's at in the Xbox interface, but there's also just maybe they realize that they're more interested in a smaller game experience and not like, oh, I didn't have to play this massive 40-hour game.
Yeah, like something like Battlefield or whatever, it just brings attention. It just brings attention to Xbox Live, and the kind of trend with Xbox Live is everything sort of started out really shitty when it was first introduced, and as the larger channels get on there, like it's kind of like what we were talking about with the IGF a couple days ago, how like the higher quality game, it doesn't necessarily hurt Xbox Live or anything like that, or developers aspiring to go on Xbox Live. It just makes the competition that much more, and it brings just that much more, that many more eyes and hands onto like Xbox Live or something like that. So
Yeah, it's making the platform more viable.
yeah, it's just making it more accessible to people, and if that means that Battlefield needs a slot on it in order for 100,000 more people to see that Fez is going to be on Xbox Live, well then that's a good thing.
Yeah.
That's a good point. A thought that it brings to mind though is that like IGF, the more better games enter the IGF, the better. But that's because there's an unlimited number of slots, and with XBLA there is a limited number of slots. And if I could see a scenario where Microsoft needs to pick the games that they're releasing this year, and they have a limited number of slots, and of course they're going to go with the Battlefield 1943s that bring in $10 million over the smaller indie games that, if they're a hit, they bring in like $1 to maybe $3 million, however much. I don't know what Braid's numbers are, but I could see Microsoft just making the call of like, look, we have 12 or 50 or however many slots they have, and we have just as many games by big publishers that will likely bring in $10-20 million each. Why the hell would they go with the innovative, quirky indie games?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, so what's your take on, I guess it's been renamed now to Xbox Live Indie Games. Not really like the name change, but it seems to me that Microsoft, even before it was called Indie Games, they were trying to siphon some of the smaller indies off into that channel versus XBLA. Do you think that's part of their strategy? Do you think they want people that, like, even a game like Fez, maybe they could put games like that onto Xbox Live Indie Games and then try to free up XBLA slots for the big Konami, the big Capcom, the big whatever games?
So I don't think they need to free up slots. I mean, they can give the slots to whoever they want. But from what I've heard so far, XBlig, or however we want to call it, doesn't really generate any revenue. I think I made a game with zombies in it was the most successful game so far, and it generated something like $70,000.
Yeah.
Which is something that a kid in his parents' bedroom, in his parents' basement, can parents' bedroom. That's kind of weird.
That's a good way of indie.
A kid in his basement would make $70,000 be a huge win. But if you're actually trying to do this for a living, then the best case scenario is not that great.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's basically generating enough sales to be a viable channel right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of my take. That I think Gamasutra has been posting regular numbers, or I don't know if they're extrapolated or if they have actual data. I know they posted some actual data from a few different developers, and it does seem like it's not really viable for a 3 or 4 person team.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like they don't. I barely know where it is on the Xbox dashboard. I mean, I know there's indie games there. I think I've only accidentally run across them a couple of times, but yeah, it's just not very, very prominent or anything, and I don't think they're gonna push to make it prominent or whatever. But oddly enough, that's kind of the that whole indie games and then big budget games like XBLA, and then Xbox Live indie games. That's kind of the setup that Apple should have for their iTunes store, because all indie games kind of thing, everything gets drowned out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe we need to have an indie-specific console that has nothing but indie games.
Get the Phantom back in production.
We could sell it at Target, and it could be called the Wii with 2 E's.
The Wii. I don't want to develop that console, so.
I already built it.
Oh, cool. I figured you probably already did yesterday.
I threw it out. It was bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Ron, I'm super curious about what you have going on in this next year. Like, if there's anything you're involved in now that you want to talk about, or if there's anything that you kind of have floating around in the brain that you maybe want to start up, or what?
I'm actually working on 3 different things, and I'm kind of not ready to talk about any of them yet.
Okay.
2 of them are game projects, which haven't yet gotten to the point where I know if they're fun or not. One of them I'm working on with Colin Northway.
Yeah.
Famous for Fantastic Contraption. And we'll see. I'm hoping that after I come back from vacation, it'll probably take us, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 more weeks to get to the point where we see if it's fun or not. And if it is fun, we'll probably give out some details on it. The other one is iPhone idea that I had with my brother. And again, I don't want to go into details. We have no idea if it's fun or not yet. And the third one is something that we plan to announce for sure before GDC. And I think all of you know what I'm talking about, but I don't want to kind of let the cat out of the bag.
Yeah, we'll probably do a whole show on that, or at least one segment of a show on this particular thing.
Yes,
that'd be awesome.
Do you see these projects taking up the majority of the year, or do you just kind of play it by ear for the first couple months?
I have no idea. Like the game I'm working on with Colin would probably take more than a year to develop. The other game idea is a relatively quick one, and the unspeakable one is probably an ongoing thing that is not a full-time project. So.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I'm assuming you're going to GDC and you tend to hang out. And...
Hell yeah!
Awesome, bro.
Cool.
Yeah, Ron, I believe, is speaking at the IGS.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think you're a keynote this year, but I think we are going to bill you as some sort of secondary keynote, like you would lead one of the days. I think.
All right.
I don't know. We haven't had a phone call in a while. No, I'm giving the impression that the IGS is run haphazardly, which is not the case.
No, it's not at all.
So, what would your advice be to the up-and-coming indie, the person who, because every year in the IGF there are these entrants that basically come out of nowhere. Nobody's really heard of these people. They aren't already connected to the infrastructure. Like they're not on TIGSource, they're not on a mailing list, they're not anywhere, and they are introduced that year via the IGF. And then it turns out that they need some business advice or they need some direction. Like, what would you tell these indies that are going to appear this year for the first time, either as a finalist or just as an IGF entrant? Like, what's your one big piece of advice?
Just to talk to other indies. But I've actually thought about this quite a bit, and I don't really know how to get a little bit more specific than that. Like when we were in the IGF, like shortly after, we were pretty lost. We learned a bunch of hard lessons on our own skin and kind of made a few mistakes, and luckily none of them were fatal. But through talking to other indies, we definitely learned a lot more about. We learned a lot more through other people's experience, things that didn't need to. We didn't need to make those mistakes ourselves, and probably a lot of other developers learned from us as well. My experience with pretty much any indie developer that you talk to will tell you whatever you want to know: numbers, advice, terms of contracts that they've seen, stuff like that, and just ask. Like, don't be shy about it.
Yeah, and I think 2009 was the one year that there was a lot more infrastructure developed for indies. I mean, there was always kind of people that you knew about that you could email directly, and there are always forums, but none of the forums had ever developed a really good private area. Like the Indie Gamer forums, which were the Dexterity forums years and years ago, did have a private section, and to qualify you had to have shipped a game, but they never really became a place of discussion where people would actually say, hey, I've been approached by so-and-so publisher or so-and-so distributor, like what should I know or not know about these people? And I think 2009 was the year that it felt like there was a lot of organization. I think a lot of it's actually been your doing, Ron.
So let's stop. Oh, go ahead.
I just said I agree.
Well, thank you. Given that we do have the ability to edit this afterwards, I think it might be helpful if people who are in the scene, and especially new IGF people, would know about this and at least inquire or try to get on it, if they're interested, and because those are the people that could probably benefit from it the most, right?
Yeah.
They're going to need to start negotiating contracts and stuff like that.
Someone should make up a printed handout that's a little bit like the "Have you found God" handouts. Stark black and white. Like, have you been approached by a publisher? Seek help.
Yeah.
And then like your email or something, and just go up and hand those out to every IGF finalist.
Creepy pamphlets.
Or even like the really creepy cartoon pamphlets that are like, you know, four panel cartoon where the kid goes to hell or whatever.
Yeah. Or we could rent a black van, and every IGF finalist will get them off by themselves and like get the bag over their head and punch them a couple times, and put them in the van, and then introduce them. That could be enough.
That would also work.
It's an aggressive strategy, but I think it'll
Well,
rock.
I mean, yeah, it has to be aggressive. It's
What happens? What happens at the end of this movie? Which buildings blow up?
All of them.
all of EA, like Redwood Shores or whatever, like those 8 buildings that they have.
God damn it.
I'm gonna go to jail.
The one thing that fascinates me about nobody actually goes to jail. So anyway, the one thing that fascinates me about trying to predict even 2010 is that it does feel kind of event horizon. It feels difficult to say what's beyond, you know, even like the next project. But have you spent any time thinking, Ron, about indie in 5 years, indie in 10 years? I'm always curious about like the really, really long view of something.
Oh. No, I haven't. I
think
can't
that
even look 1 year into the future. Yeah, I'm. If I take a guess, I'm going to end up being Bill Gates with his 640K of RAM quote.
Nice.
I just like don't know what. I don't know that the stuff that happened in 2009, I couldn't have predicted in 2008.
Yeah. Yeah, the one solid metric I have, just because I end up doing a lot of work on it, is the IGF size. Like this year we I think we have 160 judges for the 300 games. And I could kind of imagine what a world looks like where there's 1,000 entrants and 500 judges. Like, will that be a requirement of the IGF 5 years down the road? Or will it kind of top out where there's only so much quality, only so many teams? I don't really have an answer.
Like at some point it tips over. Like at this point, what's the structure of something like Cannes Film Festival? Like there's no way in hell they allow thousands and thousands of entrants, right? I mean, there's got to be some sort of control mechanism in place.
Yeah, actually, I wonder about that.
Yeah, because I don't. It just seems logistically unreasonable to have someone review every possible film that gets submitted into it.
Yeah.
Do you think though that people are a little like intimidated by Cannes, like, you know? Because I mean, the IGF just seems very, very open to whoever, and Cannes seems like this crazy, like closed off thing that, you know, Tarantino submits like Inglourious Bastards to or whatever, you know.
Right. Well, maybe at some point that was its clout was its own control mechanism. You know, I mean, maybe that's what'll happen to the IGF. Like, people will be way more reluctant to submit the weird, obscure, unpolished stuff that they continue to submit just because people keep submitting awesome crap. Of course, that also depends on whether Adam and Derek and guys like that get over themselves and keep submitting awesome shit to the festival.
Yeah. I think part of it is that some of these do kind of opt out, but with the film festivals and stuff in general, I think that some of the bigger festivals use smaller regional festivals as their filter. So like you might not be able to get the visibility unless you've won like a couple small regional, like you've won some sort of Northern Canada film festival, and then you can work your way towards New York.
True.
Yeah.
So part of the problem, and I think it's great that there are other festivals now showing up, but I think part of the problem is that the IGF is like this big solitary entity. So that if it needs to grow, then its entrant list will keep growing, versus if there's 10 other regional competitions, then the IGF can become smaller and more selective. So, I mean, we definitely have plenty of content now. I actually might keep some of the IGF stuff for next week when we have Simon on the show, and then play a segment like that.
Oh, cool.
Right on.
Yeah, that'd be cool. It'd be cool to talk to Scarless.
Yeah, Scarless has already agreed to come on the air, so it's just a question of what we're going to do with him. And then, by next week, the finalists will actually be announced, so we can talk about who these finalists are.
Right.
It'll be an amazing time.
Are we going to talk about student entries too, by any chance?
Well, we aren't announcing finalists for that, I think, until the middle of the month.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's never been synced up. Like the deadline for entry and then the announcement date are always like 2 weeks apart.
Right.
So yeah, after student, we can definitely get it on. And in terms of show content, that'll be basically an unlimited list of people.
Yeah.
So anything else you want to get on the recording, Ron?
No, I just kind of wish that I had more to report on other projects because I'm like fired up about them. I just struggling to keep my mouth shut.
Yeah.
Should have got you drunk.
Ron, put your mouth against the screen. We're going to squirt into the mic.
I got the new wine plugin for Skype.
Was that a Linux emulation joke?
Oh, wow.
It could be.
It is now.
Oh boy.
No.
Those acronyms are awesome.
You should make awesome into a recursive acronym.
God.
Awesome. Yeah. You're just pronouncing letters, Matthew.
You're just.
All right. Sweet. Well, thank you for your time, Ron.
Yeah, thanks, Ron.
And we will see you around on the internet, I'm sure. And by GDC for sure.
For
Yes.
sure.
Sweet.
All right.
Cool.
Bye, Ben. Bye, Matthew.
Later on.
Later.
Bye, Ron.
That's going to be double audio.
That was epic.
All right. Yeah, sweet. We're back after the. So I was collecting questions while you guys were listening to Ron's interview. I only got one, though. It's actually aimed at Phil Fish. Are you ever going to throw another Montreal Gamma?
I hope so. Yeah. The way it worked in the past is that Gamma was sponsored and put up by the Montreal International Gaming Summit, the MIGS, and also the venue where we held it, the Société des Arts Technologiques, the SAT.
That sounded
They
awful
basically,
French.
they gave us everything away. Like they didn't charge us for the room, they didn't charge us for the technicians setting up the equipment, all that. So we had like really good backing up, but GDC approached us and they said, want to do it in San Francisco, and that was just too good to refuse. So we didn't do a Gamma this year. 2009 there was no Gamma. To push it back early 2010. But yeah, of course I hope we get to do another one in Montreal. There's plan of doing like smaller kind of off Gammas, in 6 months after the real one or something like that.
That'd be pretty rad.
Yeah, we want to experiment with slightly different formats for different type of events, because if we do it without the crowd, the thing is that the MIGS attracted a very game friendly crowd to the party, and it was nice because it was an international crowd. It was people from all over the world coming in to Montreal for the summit, and then they got to go to Gamma also. The same reason we're doing it with GDC. So if we did it on our own, it would be a lot more complicated and costly for us. So it would be like a smaller scale Gamma.
I guess there's already a sense of Wonder Night, but you should totally do a Gamma for Tokyo Game Show, just as an excuse to go to Tokyo.
Oh yeah, I've been looking for a reason for people to send me there.
So there's another question from the chat room, and it's I guess it's actually directed to you again, Phil. But why do you bother making games when something as amazing as Flytrap exists? Like the best game ever has been created, so why even try?
Yeah, you're wasting your time.
Why indeed?
And
Why
I assume
indeed?
we're all familiar with Flytrap here.
I
Yeah,
have no idea what that is.
I actually played it.
not.
Flytrap was it's a game. I don't know if it's on
Well,
XBLIG.
Fez is
now.
canceled, by the way. I played I did give up. I did.
You even conjugated it correctly.
Yeah. So, Cove wins.
Yeah. Briefly, Tommy, there's a thread. It's actually on like an interview with Derek Yu about the Indie Spirit or something, but there's a comment thread on Kamasutra that's 100+ comments where a guy who made this game is saying that Miyamoto had this much trouble getting attention, comparing himself and the quality of his Xbox Live Arcade Indie or Xbox.
Miyamoto never had to work for press like this.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's an interesting thread because I actually bothered to comment at the very end of it, but I actually think that the guy believes what he's saying, but not because he's incorrect, but because he made the game. Like it's like your baby is the most beautiful baby in the world, and that's a true statement, but only if it's your baby. If it's not your game, So I actually think it's fascinating that technology lets more and more people make games because more and more people can experience the best game in the world because they're making their own game. So it's like when people are making their little Flash games, and I don't mean to belittle Flash games in general. I'm talking about like the the middle schooler who's making a Flash game. That's kind of his first step into making games. That's probably the coolest shit ever. Because when I was messing with like QBasic games, it was the coolest shit ever because it was my own game.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just find it fascinating because it's like I think his reality is in his reality it is the best game ever. It's just that's just not everyone else's reality because they didn't make the game.
Yeah, we are officially in the age of anyone in the world can make games, and most of them are going to experience that. Oh my God, this is the coolest thing that has ever been made simply because
Like,
I made
really,
it.
you guys feel that way when you make a game? I've never made something and felt that it was the absolute best shit ever.
Well,
If I did, I'd be like, clearly, I'm full of myself and
Well,
something's
it's more
wrong.
of like that temporary technology excitement, you know? It's like, oh, we've made something move, not necessarily like this.
No, you
Yeah,
can think it's super awesome. You can be super proud, but like, if I thought that Fez was the best shit ever,
Okay, so yeah, I do agree with you there. Like, I don't think our games are the best thing ever, but I definitely, when we have a prototype, I will play with that prototype much longer than I ever would if it wasn't something that I made.
oh yeah, no,
And that's why I mean, I think that guy has taken.
Perfect example is I played the fuck out of Goo. I was the only one.
No, I saw someone else play it once.
Yeah, I thought one guy play it. But
Wasn't it the meth head at Austin that played it?
What's that? Oh yeah, that guy was hilarious. He just came up and just started touching the laptop. Hey, show me how it works. What? What do you want from me?
He was scrounging for juice, buddy.
Yeah, that guy. Oh my God, I kind of like backed away from that guy, and I was like, just take the laptop. Just don't like knife me or something.
He smelled like cold metal.
There's another question, Phil, from UStreamer 75443. If only people could read the topic and change their name. But anyway, I mean, he's talking about Flash specifically, like where should Flash people go beyond Flash development? But I mean, I'm going to generalize the question is like, where should sort of smaller form game developers go beyond smaller form games, or do they even need to?
yeah, because I don't know anything about Flash. at
Yeah, I
all.
mean, just do you, I actually hear that a lot, and it's something that bugs me. I'm going to answer the question and not Phil, blah. But when I talk to people on the street, like I'm at a girlfriend, I'm with my girlfriend, and I'm at some sort of family gathering or something. When I talk to people I don't know, and they're like, "Oh, what do you do?" I'm like, "Oh, I run like a 3-person company." A lot of people respond, "Oh, I'm sorry. Like, don't worry, you'll get there. Like, you'll grow." And I really hate the notion of like, well, what if I want to be a 3-person company? What if I want to make these smaller games? I think people who are making Flash games shouldn't worry about making it as a stepping stone or something. I don't know.
No, I think there's room for it as its own thing. I really don't hope that every indie game becomes a Braid, a Fez, a bigger commercial release. I hope there's tons more Cactus type people making lots of really weird stuff that you can even possibly sell anywhere. Stuff that really just exists because somebody had an idea and they had to put it out there. That's perfectly valid.
Yeah.
Like, I wish I could do that right now. All I'm doing is working on Fez. But as soon as I'm done with that, my plan is to just make really, really small form stuff for a while. It's been like 2.5 years on Fez. That's a really long time on one project. I envy the people that get to make lots of smaller stuff and they get to experiment with different art styles and completely different, 2D games or 3D games. Like, I wish I could make a straight up 2D game right now. That would be so easy.
Is that like a 2D, 3D game?
Yeah, just straight up platforming. That it would take a month.
Well, I mean, there's already 3D, 4D games out there. Like that, there was that game that was done at the experimental gameplay workshop that was 3D.
God, that got me really depressed.
You're like, wow, he totally trumped me.
Yeah, he really one upped me completely. I couldn't even keep up. And like, I'm into that type of stuff. I'm into higher spatial dimensions, and I couldn't even begin to understand what was going on in that game. He knew, like, he played it okay, but yeah, that was too much for me.
Yeah, I had a really hard time. Like I saw what was happening and I kind of understood it, but I had a really hard time predicting what the world would look like after a dimensional shift. Whereas in Fez or some other game like that, I can predict what the world would look like after a dimensional shift. I'm like,
it's
I
funny
see.
because there's so much interpretation into what a 4-dimensional object would look like or how the 4th dimension would behave. It's my idea of it was completely different than his idea. You know, there's some science to it, but then the way it would look and move.
Yeah. So there's another question for you, Phil. How did you start making games? And today, if you were to start making games, where would you start? Where would you suggest other people start?
My real start was on a Macintosh Classic. I was making games with HyperCard at the time. I was obsessed with Myst, so I was making Myst-like games that was easy in a HyperCard. You know, I could just make like first-person views of places and click where you wanted to go. And my dad made games like that too that were a little bit more elaborate, and we worked on a whole bunch of kind of exploration puzzle games like that. That was
Did you
when I
say
was really
your
young.
dad?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Like when the Classic came out, I was like, what, 88, 89, something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, black and white HyperCard games. I still have that computer. I still have a bunch of stuff on it that I made with art from Kid Pix. I don't know if you know that. It was a kid's painting
Hell
program.
yeah, Kid Pix.
Yeah, all my art was made in Kid Pix. I kept using the little like penguin stamp art and all the clip art. There's reviews everywhere.
Do you actually have any of it?
Yeah, I have that. Well, it's still on the Mac. Like I don't know how to get it out of there, you know. But
You should totally somehow get that out, like one holiday back home.
yeah, I had this one application called CyberVision 2000.
Oh man, that sounds so futuristic.
Yeah, what it was you had your pick of different black and white like checker patterns with different type of distortions, or you know, a kind of infinite horizon plane pattern, and then you would press your face against the small glass screen, and you would click on a button, and then it would just alternate between the black and white. It would just inverse the colors, but it would flicker like at 30 frames a second. And it was it was like a seizure machine. It was a crazy, trippy, hallucinatory device that I made when I was like 11 or so.
Hell yes.
Yeah, I whipped that out at MIGS last year. Brendan and Mark Johns and Aaron played it, and yeah, it's like a game for stoners. I made it when I was 11.
Wow, you started early.
Yeah.
So we have a couple minutes left, but there's a question. So it's basically New Year's resolutions roundtable. Like, do you have a New Year's resolution, either personally or for game development reasons? So like everybody good on the list. Who has one? Does anybody even had time to think about New Year's resolutions?
A New Year resolution is finish Bez.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
the only goal for the next year of my life.
That's basically our 2010. Like, we went from Blurst, a bunch of 6 or 8 week games, to let's make one game and try to get it done in the year. So we're kind of in that camp too. So I guess the answer for all of us is finish the big projects that we have started or have been working on.
Also stop going to bed at 9 a.m. That's my big one, and that's a real one because it just totally fucks me up when I don't. So that's like mine.
Yeah, I actually used to graph the Subversion commit times from our first projects, and like our very first Flashbang projects, I would try to stay awake until McDonald's opened up. So both staying awake too late, eating at fucking McDonald's, and just everything. And the graph actually had these big spikes at 3 and 4 in the morning. And then I graphed our like second and third projects, and there are these 9 to 5 bell curves.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with eating healthy and exercising.
Sure, you shut up.
Shut up. You shut your pie hole. Shut my celery hole is what I'll shut.
Let's be healthy and work out.
Yeah, that's
Let's
all.
improve our lives.
That's all.
Yeah.
Life.
What kind of New Year's resolution is that?
Yeah, we actually had a pretty good rant about that. We basically gave our Austin IGS talk again at the Unity conference, and it was recorded. It hasn't been posted yet, but it'll actually be, I think, a pretty good video. I'll try to accompany that with like an essay of some kind on the blog about here's why you should stop work at 3 p.m. and go exercise.
Yeah.
It was a good rant by me and Steve. Cool.
Very inspiring.
I think that wraps up the second TIGRadio show. Special thanks to our guests, Phil Fish, Heather Kelley, and Ron Carmel. Your TIGRadio hosts are Matthew Wegner, Ben Ruiz, and Tommy Reffinez. TIGRadio theme. Yeah, that's who we are. TIGRadio theme song by Denny Baranowski. TIGRadio website by Kyle Pulver. TIGRadio is proudly sponsored by Absolutely Nobody, and see you guys next week.
Hey-o.
Bye.